Hello there and welcome to another edition of the Evening Review. My name is Okito Greg, and in studio with me this evening I have Miss Toni Beukes. She has just been recognized as Woman in Green Hydrogen 2025 at the recent Global Africa Hydrogen Summit here in Windhoek. Welcome, Toni.
Thank you so much for having me, Okito.
Congratulations on your recognition.
Thank you.
But I noticed the title is Woman in Green Hydrogen, not Women. Are you the only one?
Certainly not, Okito. There are a number of women that, as Namibia has been leading green hydrogen on the continent, are doing their part to position themselves. So we have a number of developers in country outside of the Hyphen project. There are projects like HDF, led by very, very strong women, CWP, very, very, very similar. So there are lots of women out there. I think there is a reality that women are still underrepresented generally within STEM, but I'm certainly not the only one. In fact, there's a group of young women that have opened a chapter in Namibia around women in green hydrogen specifically, and they're leading the charge. So yes, I'm definitely not the only one. But I think it's fantastic to get the recognition, specifically from Hyphen's perspective, because it's for me, it's not just a personal milestone, but it does represent the work that we do at Hyphen.
Yes.
And of course, I mentioned it during the night that I got the award, that it takes a village. We all know that, right? And if we look at the Hyphen team, specifically the socioeconomic development team, what we're doing and leading the charge on greater inclusion of Namibians in the project, that's something that we're very, very proud of. And the award for us, for me, is part of that recognition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. We'll circle back to that in a minute. But first, I'd like us to revisit the actual summit.
Okay.
What were your impressions and some of the highlights of the summit for you?
What I really enjoyed, so it was massive. It was the second installment of the summit under the theme Ambition into Action.
Yes.
What I really liked is they had included pre-summit masterclasses, a strategic program, technical program, but also this year included a youth program.
Yes.
So that was quite significant. I think part of the criticism previously was that there wasn't enough representation of civil society and specifically stakeholders like the youth. So they did a fantastic job to bring that voice into the program. We're very proud as Hyphen because we work together with the GIZ, and we officially launched what we call Green Hydrogen Youth Ambassadors, where we selected 2 youths from around the country, all graduates in various fields, and we took them through GIZ's PTX training, but combined that with Namibia's Green Hydrogen Strategy and industrialization roadmap.
What's a PTX training?
Power to X, so it really speaks to green hydrogen and the development of derivatives. So for them to understand that, but also to understand it in the context of Namibia's ambitions around green industrialization, and then added components of the Hyphen project specifically. And the idea is that these youth ambassadors would support developers such as Hyphen and others within the Green Hydrogen Association to take stakeholder to support in terms of stakeholder engagement. So that was particularly exciting for me to see those voices being represented at the summit. But also, I mean, we had over 1,500 delegates from I believe over 75 countries represented. And talking, this is a nascent industry, not just for Namibia, really globally. So all of the topics that we're required to resolve and figure out and think through collectively. So it's around skills development, it's market access, it's stuff like water and how critical that is in the development of it. So really key topics. It was a conference and exhibition, so very interesting also to see some exhibitors showcasing technology, what they do. So very exciting.
Yes, I saw some very interesting technologies. But in terms of the other developments in country related to establishing green hydrogen as an industry in Namibia, were there highlights for you? Did you see something that piqued your interest?
Well, I think what is important is that we keep making incremental shifts. So it's a different scenario for me than where we were last year. There is more specifically skills development, which is central to the work that we do, again, at Hyphen. There is more support. You know, I moderated a session on building institutional capacity in country.
Okay.
And having representatives from the ministry there, the National Training Authority, but also the EU as a development partner, putting in funding into the NTA for technical support. How do we build institutional capacity?
Yes.
Because we have to get really real and realistic about what that looks like. And so that for me is exciting. Every conversation seems to have edged just a little bit closer to reality. It's not the same conversation. So that for me is exciting.
So it's incremental, step-by-step progress.
Step-by-step progress, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just zooming in on that institutional support and also the rules and regulations. I remember there was a story written by a colleague of mine about a lack of regulations governing the transport of molecules on roads and so forth. Yeah. Have we made any progress with those kinds of things?
I believe that's really a question that should be posed to government.
Yeah.
What we have in the Hyphen contract is that that's part of government's responsibility. I believe they started with a gap analysis. So we have existing legislation that can cover a lot of the areas for the development of green hydrogen projects, but there are some gaps. So it's looking at existing legislation, what do we need to amend, and what new legislation needs to be brought in order to enable the sector, more broadly speaking. Okay. So I believe that work is underway, but the particulars we would need to find out from government representatives.
Yeah. Coming back to Hyphen and the work you do as head of ESG, that's environment, social, and governance.
Yes, right? That's right.
There's some skepticism. In general, some people are not quite sold on the green hydrogen initiative. And one of the main issues that's been brought to the fore most recently is the question of where are the jobs? Are the jobs coming?
The jobs are coming. We look, in the Hyphen project again, we're looking at about a 10 billion euro investment.
Yes.
And that's what's so significant about the sector. The investment, the capital needs to flow in country, needs to come here. So we're creating the jobs locally.
Okay.
Your audience may know that on the Hyphen project, we're estimating about 15,000 people to be employed during the construction phase, and 3,000 during the operations phase. So we're doing an assessment, a detailed assessment, where we are double checking or checking, verifying whether that's the exact number. Maybe it could be more or less, but we're building a workforce competency and planning model to determine how many we need, who are they, what skill and competency level should be attached to those jobs, and at what point in the project implementation and operation do we need to place them. So that's a significant piece of work that's underway. I know at industry level, the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association, the Green Hydrogen Program is doing similar work. I think what is critical as we develop the sector and we talk about skills development and employment is that we're realistic about what's achievable in the short term and the medium term. If we want to build a sustainable sector, we should be looking at what are the jobs that are high in number because we have an unemployment issue that we should prioritize. There are hundreds of new professions that will emerge from the green hydrogen value chain. And as Namibia, I think we need to be realistic and prioritize very carefully. So it's jobs that are high in numbers, it's jobs that are meaningful, and are, in my view, low to medium level in terms of their specialization.
Okay.
So that we can train quickly, because these projects are massive.
Yeah.
So it's time and skill, but we should not try and localize jobs for the sake of localizing and put projects such as Hyphen and others in jeopardy. So the answer should be, if we cannot place you today, it's not no, it's just not yet.
Okay.
These are highly, highly specialized. We have hundreds of welders, but they don't have the requisite specialization. So amongst those jobs that kind of fit into the category that I just described are welders, for instance. But they need to be trained in specific codes. We have the logistics component will be massive in terms of, if you just think of wind turbine wind turbines to be imported, we will have between 500 and 600 wind turbines. For every turbine, you have at least 5 tower sections that needs to be moved. You have 3 blades and you have a nacelle. So you do the math in terms of 500 and 600, how many specialized transportation drivers you require just on that component. So wind turbine service technicians, again, because we'll have so many to install, solar technicians. So those are low to medium level specializations that we can train in high numbers that can support not just the Hyphen project. And remember, we're the Catalyst project, because people also ask, yes, but 15,000 temporary jobs, yes. That is the nature of construction, right? Yes. If governments, when government, because the rollout of the strategy basically suggests that government will then be allocating further tenders in the SCDI beyond the Hyphen project as soon as we get to FID. Mm. And that allows for that rolling of the jobs that we begin to create for Hyphen to be placed in future projects.
So somebody who is installing solar panels at Hyphen,
yes.
Once that's finished, they should be installing solar panels in the next project.
That's it.
And the next project.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, for instance, if we look at the renewable energy that you'll be generating, it's huge amounts, gigawatt scale, yeah. And there'll be excess energy at certain phases. Mm-hmm. And the idea was always that excess energy will then benefit the country as a whole.
Yeah.
But there needs to be provision made to wield that energy, and there needs to be, let me say that the excess, the use of the excess needs to be planned in. Mm. Is that in the nature of the development of the industry in Namibia at the moment? Is it planned in that what can benefit the nation now will benefit the nation now?
Mm. So I can't speak broadly to kind of what other projects have installed, or in fact like an overarching policy that government has in mind to govern the sector. What I can say is in the Hyphen contract, we specifically included that as a commitment to investigate together with NamPower, okay, as the utility, national utility, that is responsible and has authority over that. So we've said there will be excess power, and it's a matter of sitting down and working out how much power, what's the profile that NamPower would want the power in, when does it want it. There is additional grid that needs to be built. Yes. So we basically have the Hyphen or so-called project grid, that is a standalone, and you'd need to connect that to the national grid. So what does all of that look like? So it needs to make technically it has to be a sound solution that works for both the project but also NamPower, and then it needs to economically make sense in terms of the building of that additional infrastructure. And that is a process that's underway already, that has started between the Hyphen technical team and NamPower. They've been exploring that already for a number of months.
Excellent. And we will also continue our exploration of this topic in a few minutes when we come back from this short commercial break. So please stay with us. Welcome back to the Evening Review. My name is Okito Greg, and in studio with me this evening I have Ms. Toni Beukes, the head of ESG at Hyphen Hydrogen Energy, and recently acknowledged as Women in Green Hydrogen 2025 at the Global Africa Hydrogen Summit here in Windhoek. Toni, there's been so much happening, and I was wondering, there's an expression about critical mass. Do you think that the establishment of a green hydrogen industry in Namibia has now gained enough critical mass that it's going to happen one way or the other? Can it not be stopped? Or is there still a risk that everything can blow up in our face?
I don't think critical mass is necessarily the measure of whether it will take off or not. The reality is that green hydrogen is still more expensive than grey hydrogen.
Okay.
And so it is up to really the world, different countries, potentially, especially countries where for instance, our ammonia would be shipped to, or whether those countries won, and that has been the impetus of what's been driving the sector globally, is the security of supply for a lot of countries, but also the transition. We have collectively, as the globe, decided to get to net zero by 2050. And in order to do that, every country have come up with nationally determined contributions in terms of CO2 reductions. And for that to happen, countries basically need to put the money where the mouth so to speak. And what that means is because we're paying still more for green than grey, countries would need to provide, potential offtake jurisdictions would need to provide some sort of sovereign support mechanism, and that could look very differently. We're looking at what we're calling a contract for difference. So it's basically providing long-term security for the export. So that if it's a country, let's say it's Germany, then basically the off-taker in Germany, the company who's utilizing the hydrogen, is willing to basically go green because there's some level of subsidization, very broadly speaking, that is provided by its government to enable it to buy from Hyphen versus another producer of grey hydrogen. So that's really what it would require. And so we've seen in the last couple of months, globally, lots of shifts. And so there is perhaps a revisit. All of these really large jurisdictions, priorities have changed. We see a lot of money going into military. We see the tariff wars that have been on and so on. So all of these things have an impact around how quickly this can happen. So green hydrogen is really where wind and solar was 10 years ago, that it requires that support, and you need to build these projects at scale in order to basically get to commercialize projects like ours.
And where do these funny terms like carbon credits and all this money to change the world, how does that fit in? Is that just talk?
I'm not a specialist on carbon credits, but it's all the same movement. It's around the energy transition, and it's around how do we enable industries to shift, right? It has to make sense. It has to be commercial in terms of what they're doing. So that's really the context and the background of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This year we've seen some significant milestones. We've seen High Iron producing their first green hydrogen, and even this week we expect Clenergy to make a big announcement. I wanted to find out, in terms of Hyphen and your project in the Deep South, where are we now? What has been the recent developments?
Yeah, on the technical side, you may know, a couple of months ago we had gone out an international RFI, request for information from various OEMs, so original equipment manufacturers. We have such a mega project, so basically looking at the different engineering infrastructure components and trying to gauge interest of those big OEMs to participate in the project. There was overwhelming interest. We then went down selected a number of those OEMs, and for each of those engineering packages we now have set out, gone to bidding effectively. And the most recent development is that for the ammonia package we have appointed the feed and EPC contractor, CC7, a Chinese company, to do that. So that's on the technical side. Again, going back to the socioeconomic development, which is part of a big component of the ESG function that I hold, we, on the 8th of September, so just the day before the summit kicked off, we did a hard launch of our national skills census. And that's part of the baseline studies that we're undertaking to really understand what is the supply of the skill that we need. So I talked earlier around the demand side. So mapping what do we need for the project, how many. The supply side looks at who do we have in country to actually take up those opportunities. And the skill census is part of that national skills audit that Hyphen has undertaken. And it's really a self-assessment. It says, Ogito, do you want to participate in our audit? Sign yourself up so that we know about you. And that is going to help, because we have really quite disaggregated information so we're using information from, it's publicly available, but we want to provide a consolidated database of Namibians and the skill. So we did that, and it was, we had the keynote address by Honorable Balotti from the Ministry of Education, excuse me. So that was really successful. We're very happy with that, and now obviously key stakeholders from all around the country in terms of the skills value chain participating in that. And then on the Friday the 12th, we had another event, more on our local content and enterprise and supplier development, where we signed an MOU with two institutions, so Africa for AIM and Baden-Württemberg. They're one of the states in Germany.
Yeah.
And that MOU looks to, basically there are lots of German and European entities that are interested in working in Namibia on a project like Hyphen and others. And we're saying, let's use it as an opportunity for early matchmaking.
Okay.
And we invited a number of Namibian entities because we've now begun, as part of the baseline studies again on local content, we're doing a study where we are mapping the capability that we have in country. So again, it is what potential local content packages can we have, but also what sort of capability and capacity we have in country to potentially take up those opportunities. But we know as part of the enterprise and supply development program, there are lots of challenges that our entities may face. So typical barriers of entry, especially also for women businesses. What are those and how do we support with unlocking that? So it's really the MOUs, and the second one was a letter of intent with the German Chamber of Commerce, Southern Africa and chapter, looking to allow for that matchmaking and technical support. So very, very excited about that. Again, the Honourable Deputy Minister Kroona from Industries, Mines and Energy did the keynote address and really just reiterated government support in terms of supporting such initiatives.
That's a very good initiative, and I mean, if we look at the high iron example, then the collaboration can really deliver results quickly. But the worry is that, you know, if you are doing this matchmaking early, you're already creating sort of cliques. And we know about cliques in Namibia. Ultimately, they are used to keep people out. So how will you reconcile these developments and still try to be inclusive, especially a few years down the line when it's now evident that people are making money, there's a success, and others want to join, but they're a bit late.
Yeah. As a part of the ESG function, the G is for governance, and it's good governance. And the way you govern is, and especially processes like these, there has to be openness and transparency, right? So it's in the DNA and it's how we operate, right? So, and that will be demonstrated and has been demonstrated in terms of how we've done. So another key thing, and I'll come back to your question just now as we concluded, our SED National Roadshow, where we've covered all 14 regions. We went to every major town in this country to go and explain what is the Hyphen project, what is socioeconomic development, how can you benefit directly. And that's part of the ethos that we drive the project with. So that is a demonstration of transparency. The signing of the MOUs, and it's an opportunity for matchmaking, but it's bringing together not just the big business. For them, medium and large, we need to look at scale, but for the small and medium enterprises, providing access where they don't have access yet, right? And the enterprise and supply development program would really look to design. It's a basket of solutions that are required to unlock and enable local business. Okay. So Ogito, as you may require, in fact, we had a panel discussion where we had different stakeholders again, but bringing in the banking. Our banks, the financiers. So we had Mr. David Nyoma there as a long-standing, we had the Development Bank of Namibia there, NCCI represented, saying, what is it that your members need? And what do we think, how should we create these baskets of solutions? And one of the comments from the panel was, its financial management is one of those very basic things that our SMMEs need to learn. Yes. So that will be one solution, right? Okay. So,
Toni, let me interrupt you because our time is almost finished, and we've covered some of the S and the G. I'd just like your final words about the E, the environment, and then maybe a message for our viewers.
Yeah, on the environment, so we have not yet kicked off our ESIA, Environmental and Social Impact Assessment. Okay. That stakeholder engagement should probably start in the next quarter, in this quarter. But we've done a lot of early de-risking to understand the environment basically to understand the land parcel and where we will be implementing the project in the park. And because it's a national park, it already has a management plan, and we've used that management plan to understand the ecology. Okay. So basically avoiding, in terms of project footprint, your high high biodiversity sensitivity areas, and placing the emphasis. So a very interesting approach where the ecology of the environment is involving footprint and not the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot more we can say about it, but as you said, we've run out of time. I think I love the questions that you asked, because they are real, because the skepticism is real, and we need to keep asking them. We do the same when we've gone on the road shows. So I would just say, please continue engaging with us, ask the questions. We will soon also, as part of the ESIA, we will be launching a grievance mechanism where the public can raise specific questions or concerns, obviously within the environmental process, but also the social component of what we're trying to do.
Okay.
So yeah, please keep following Hyphen and keep bringing us back to share information.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining us. That's all we have time for tonight on the Evening Review. Now join us again for the next Evening Review. Until then, good night.